Good evening. Let me begin by thanking Craig Allen and the U.S.-China Business Council team, as well as Mark Casper at Thermo Fisher, for the kind invitation to speak with you tonight. The annual U.S.-China Business Council Gala is one of the premier events anywhere, bringing together government and business leaders focused on U.S.-China commercial relations. It's an honor to have the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you tonight, and I truly regret that I cannot join you in person. I want to take a moment to acknowledge a few of the many special guests joining us tonight from the U.S. government, particularly Congresswoman Carol Miller and Terry McCartan, the Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for China. From the Chinese government, His Excellency Ambassador Qin Gang, this year's keynote speaker and U.S.-China Business Council honoree, as well as Minister Xie Jianhua, my friend and China's Special Envoy for Climate Change, who is joining virtually from Beijing. I also recognize that many business leaders gathered here tonight, as well as those joining online, who represent some of America's finest corporations. The U.S.-China relationship is arguably the most important bilateral relationship in the world. There are so many global issues that depend on how our countries collaborate and respond, whether it's global inflation and the slowing worldwide economy, the war in Europe, global health challenges, or energy security and climate change. There has never been a more consequential time in history for how the United States and China, ideally together, address these issues. As we all know, China remains a top market for many U.S. businesses, and the business community is interested and committed to sustaining the largest commercial relationship in history. Economics and business has always been, and should continue to be, a stabilizer in the relationship. Most of the companies represented tonight are successful case studies of businesses that establish and maintain important bridges between our two economies and peoples. Managing diplomatic relations is never easy. In the last 2 years, COVID has presented new challenges, unprecedented in our lifetimes, to maintaining even the most basic level of engagement. Our inability to meet in person has hindered relationship building and vital dialogue. Adding to the complexity of our diplomatic engagement is the reality that competition has emerged as one of the defining features of U.S.-China relations. We must acknowledge that new and more focused competitive strategies in both countries have introduced new strains between us. However, economics teaches us that competition is good. Nations can and should be economic competitors. What's critical is that the two states, engagement and competition, exist as complements and counterbalances so that we're able to effectively address the many common global issues I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, over the past 3 months, our leaders have been able to once again meet in person, which serves the interests of both our nations. The recent meeting between President Biden and President Xi has led to a commitment to restart important discussions between our two governments. There is a positive outcome and opportunity to change the tone and trajectory of U.S.-China relations. The seriousness of some of our differences is significant and should not be underestimated. But with a well-tailored agenda, clear channels of communication, and empowered officials on both sides, dialogue should help stabilize relations. That is essential. The stakes are simply too high, and the world expects the U.S. and China to lead on our common global challenges. The theme of tonight's dinner is climate change, a shared challenge and responsibility. Climate change represents one of the most critically important issues of our time, and it requires our joint attention. It was positive news that one of the outcomes of the recent leaders' meeting was that climate talks would restart. There have been many examples where the U.S. and China have been able to align around larger strategic issues, and surely climate can be one of those. Many American companies are deploying breakthrough strategies to address climate change. At Ford Motor Company, battling climate change, along with new, higher levels of operating and vehicle performance, is at the core of our purpose to help build a better world. Fundamental to that is our leadership of the transition to electric vehicles in the US and in China and elsewhere. Economies of scale are critical to many industries, and this is especially true in the automotive sector. Like in many other product categories, China is and will be the world's largest electric vehicle market, and as a result, central to global EV scale. Again, the US and China are facing new and serious competitive issues that are intertwined with a number of urgent, common global challenges. I'm confident that we have excellent people in place to lead these efforts. In Beijing, the US is very capably represented by Ambassador Nick Burns. In Washington, China has sent the very able Ambassador Qin Gang. I know from personal experience that the effort that goes into representing our nations, and it is fitting therefore to recognize Ambassador Qin as a U.S.-China Business Council honoree for his efforts over the past year and a half to stabilize relations. If you have followed Ambassador Qin's work since he landed in Washington in the summer of 2021, he is persistently fulfilling his mission to meet with as many U.S. groups as possible, including many business leaders who are here tonight, in order to understand and address the most crucial issues. Congratulations, Ambassador Qin, and thank you for the hard work of your team at the embassy. To close, I want to say how proud we all are of the great work Craig Allen and his team at the Council are doing, under the leadership of Mark Casper, to highlight the importance of U.S.-China commercial relations. Ford is a founding member of the U.S.-China Business Council, which will celebrate its 50th anniversary in 2023. Never before has the voice of the Council been so important. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you this evening.